Well, hello everybody, and welcome back. We are on week 4 already. Crazy, where has the time gone? I hope y'all are keeping up with the homework all right. Um, do try and get whatever you can in. It's very easy to get behind, and I don't want to see anybody failing to keep up. So try and get the stuff in. It does help. I assure you to do everything that we prescribe in the class. It's all there for a good reason, and I hope you can all see that and see the purpose behind it. Um, we've been digging into veteran studies and really uh, unraveling the layers as we go along. We've talked about a few different topics. We talked about veterans' voices in general. What are they? How do they speak? We talked about Veterans Army, veteran activism in the bonus army in week 2. We also talked about testimony, trauma, and the public voice in week 3. Um, so week 4, and I'll share my screen so you can see what we're looking at here. Week 4 is going to cover intersectional veteran identities. And what I mean by that is that veterans sit at the intersection of a bunch of different identities in their lives. Um, and they have to choose which pieces of themselves to show at which times. And sometimes it's really difficult to disentangle that. And I would argue that most of us have some intersectional identities that we deal with on a daily basis. Nobody is a monolith of a single culture. We all have multiple identities that we put on or take off throughout our lives. Um, I have identities like poet and veteran and father and doctor and uh, candidate and employee and supervisor and these kinds of things are all roles or all identities that I have, and they are pieces of myself that make up the whole of who I am. So I would argue that veterans have a bit of a complication with this because most of them will not identify the extent to which veterandom or the military experience has really shaped who they are when they're coming out. Many of them expect to be returning to the world as it was when they left. And almost universally, they're surprised by how much it has moved on. Um, so, in the Higgins reading this week, we're reading chapter 8, which is the end of the book. And Higgins is covering military sexual trauma and sort of all of the issues surrounding that. We'll talk about that a little bit in the lecture as well. Um, but I encourage you to read through chapter 8 as much as you can and make sure you're getting um, as much as you can from Higgins. Also, I want to encourage you, if you haven't yet, to watch my interview that I did with Jason Higgins, who's really gracious in providing us a lot of insight into how he wrote the book and how he thinks. And I think we would be remiss if we did not take advantage of having the opportunity of hearing directly from the author about that. Next, we've got Younger, the Men and the Dogs. In this section of Younger, which is the beginning of the book, he talks about the tendency of people from Western civilization to seek out tribal life when possible. Especially, he talks about the American West. He calls our indigenous people Indians, which I'm not a super big fan of, but he that's what he calls them in the book. He talks about how um, Native Americans or indigenous people tended not to seek out to live in Western society, but uh, rather people who were from Western society who were either captured by or lived alongside Native people tended to want to stay alongside Native people and stay members of that tribal life. And there's a reason that he brings this up in the beginning of the book, because the rest of the book sort of outlines what that tribe means in relationship to veterans. And so we're going to cover a little bit of that in the lecture as well. Um, in our PDF packet, we've got 24 through 31. That doesn't take us quite to the end of the PDF packet, but feel free to, at this point, open up the PDF packet and go wherever you would like. I do want you to see pages 24 through 31, though. So if you haven't seen those, please take a look. I do want to read one of those poems real quick. I'll read you the poem on 24 just because it's nice and short. This is by Eli Wright, who's a veteran, and it was in the Warrior Writers anthology from 2014. We come home incomplete, with no words to describe how our hearts are now beating us back, black and blue. For some of the things we had to see and do, we all got what we asked for in one way or another, but maybe we bit off more than we could chew. We're still struggling to swallow it all. We're still choking on the truth that we were lied to. Even though they said our war was over, sure doesn't seem that way. But hopefully, one of these days, we'll finally make it back home. And so, and that's actually the end of Game Over, but I think it stands alone nicely as its own poem. Um, at any rate, that's one of the ones that we're looking at today uh, and this week. After the PDF packet, we're looking at some videos. We've got our LGBTQ plus veterans. We've got the Don't Ask, Don't Tell. We've got deported veterans, which covers uh, veterans that served and were later deported from the US. And then we've got the Women in Combat video. Those are all excellent videos. I encourage you to watch them. They will deepen your understanding of the material. They don't necessarily replace the material. I would say read the material too. But we're going to discuss that as well. For our purpose this week, we're discussing the issues surrounding veteran identities, right? So we're disentangling the veteran identity from the gender identity, from the sexual identity, from uh, all of the different regions or religions and citizenship and uh, all of these race, gender, class, all of these identities that we could possibly have, disability, different ability, uh, able-bodied, whatever it is. So for your writing assignment this week, it is 3 to 4 pages. 3 to 4 pages does not mean one sentence on the third page. It means between 3 and 4 pages of writing. The third page should be completely full, and some of the fourth page would be nice. Um, I'm not asking a lot of y'all for the writing, even though it's a writing intense course. Um, but I do want you to start trying to hit those page limits as much as possible. I want you to write an analysis of your own positionality. So you're reflecting on yourself, reflect on how your identities, your race, your gender, your class, your sexuality, your religion, your citizenship, and your disability or your able-bodied status shape how you see veterans and how you interpret narratives of war and trauma and how your different identities intersect to create your unique perspective. So this is an exercise essentially in sort of calibrating to your bias. All of us have some kind of inherent bias. We all have something that informs how we approach our world. And so I want you to pay special attention to those things in your life, in your character, that give meaning to your life. And then use that as your lens to talk about how you see veterans. Your discussion post. What are the benefits and drawbacks of identifying people primarily by their visible or most claimed identities? What might this framing obscure? And I want you to respond to at least two classmates. Make sure you're getting those responses in there. If I'm missing a response from you, I'm going to give you partial credit at the time that I do the grading. I'll come back later and do a sweep to make sure that I'm not missing anybody for full credit. You're getting full credit if you've posted your own and you've responded to two classmates. So that's what the discussion posts are. And then we're watching this lecture video that we're going through right now. The lecture videos are meant to be a companion to all of these pieces. The lecture video is the least important part of any of these. I do also include my lecture notes in case you want some notes so you can go back through what we covered in the lecture. But a lot of what you need to know and what I want you to take away from the course is in those other sources, the reading, the videos, and your writing. So take that into consideration as you're planning your time. Okay, so let's look at veteran intersectional identity and the diversity of the veteran experience. So I want to start with the area where Higgins starts, and that is with MST and compounded PTSD. So MST, or military sexual trauma, refers to any sexual harassment or a sexual assault experienced by military service members. It encompasses behaviors such as unwanted sexual advances, threats, coercion, and other forms of sexual misconduct. MST affects both men and women. And the types of MST can include rape, non-consensual sexual acts, unwanted sexual touching, sexual harassment, and inappropriate sexual or lewd remarks. These traumatic responses can have long-lasting effects on survivors, leading to physical, emotional, and psychological distress. Um, so I define that right up front because I don't want us to mistake what this is. It is a spectrum of incidents and a spectrum of our responses. So the MST is our psychological response to the traumatic events that we have experienced. Um, Now, I've got some statistics for you, uh, and this one is probably the most shocking. That is that 1 in 3 women veterans are survivors of MST. So, about 30% of female veterans have experienced some kind of traumatic sexual event while a service member, and have had some kind of psychological response to the extent that they are diagnosed with MST. Um, in addition to that, 40% have experienced sexual harassment in service. This is unwanted comments or unwanted touching or inappropriate workplace behavior, these kinds of things. It's a little broader scope, hence a little higher percentage. Now, 1 in 50 men veterans are survivors of MST. So, out of every 50 men, one is likely to have been the recipient of some kind of military sexual trauma that has led them to have a diagnosis when they come out. And these statistics are coming from the VA. All right. Um, the thing about VA statistics that we need to be aware of as we go along is that VA statistics are almost always underreported because most veterans avoid the VA. So there's that. MST can compound effects of PTSD. And so if I've got military sexual trauma and PTSD, I can have PTSD about the MST events, but I can also have PTSD about other events that are not sexual in nature at all, right? So it's important to see that there's a compounding effect of the traumatic experiences that I can have, both sexual and non-sexual, as we think about this. Likewise, up to 29% of GWAT veterans have experienced PTSD. GWAT being the Global War on Terror. That is our most recent crop of veterans that we have statistics on. So thinking about all those things, I wanted to place those statistics up front so that we could understand the world that Higgins is talking about in chapter 8, because he's really giving us the story. He talks about Private First Class Vanessa Guillen, um, and her story. I don't want to spoil it for you, but um, it is uh, a tragic story and something that shouldn't happen. Um, and it just happens all too often. It's part of the culture in the military. Um, Very toxic masculine behavior. Um, Even when it's men who are experiencing the MST, often it's the result of toxic masculine behavior. So I want to make sure that we're paying attention to Higgins this week because it's very important that we learn about this, especially given the numbers of veterans that are experiencing it. If any of you are planning to work with veterans in the future, I do encourage you to pay special attention to this because the veterans that you work with um, obviously are most likely to have experienced something like this. So um, we'll keep going, but that is one piece of background that you may be dealing with as a veteran identity to intersect with other aspects of their personalities. Now, if we go down to Younger's chapter this week, Younger directly compares Western Civ to tribal life, right? So he's showing that the Indians or indigenous peoples tended not to want to leave their way of life, but captured Europeans also did not want to leave that life. Um, he's showing the appeal of tribalism to humans in general, because as we go throughout the book, he compares the military to a tribe. And when a veteran transitions away from that tribe, often they will feel like a fish out of water. All they want to do is get back to the tribe. Many physically can't anymore because of medical situations that happened while they were in the military. Um, and it's a strange thing, and veterans feel this too when they're talking about it. They say, I really hated when I was in the military, but all I want to do is get back there, right? All I want to do is grab some of that time again. All I want to do is have one more night of drinking with the boys, or whatever it is. I wish I could have just one more day in Iraq or Afghanistan, or on the flight line, or uh, hanging my feet out of a helicopter. Um, it's a very common feature of the military experience to want to get back to that tribe. So that's sort of the whole point of Younger's book, is to compare um, the military to a tribe that veterans long to get back to, um, and sort of what that does to us when we separate from the military. I look back at my pay from my time in the military. So I was in there from 2001 to 2005. In the year 2001, I made $4,844 in the military. Not a lot of money. In 2002, wasn't doing much better. 14,542. 2003, 17,298. 2004, I was a big E4 specialist, making 18,801. And then for the partial year of 2005, I made 7,894, um, which that was going to be my best year so far. But there it is. So I did not make a lot of money in the military. Um, if we uh, if we want to do a quick calculation, just as an illustration, right? Let me bring this over here. Some of you have already done it, but bear with me. I'm not very mathematical. 4824 plus 14,542 plus 17,298 plus 18,801 plus 7,894. So when you hear a veteran say, "Oh, it was just a job, they paid me for it," this is what they're talking about. So my $63,359 that I received while a member of the military, um, I don't know that that was something that was adequately compensating me for the experience. We'll say that, uh, especially considering that's not even approaching what I make in 1 year now. So uh, it hits you hard when you're looking back at it like that. It's um, it's hard to imagine wanting to return, and yet I still think about, oh, I wish I could go back to base and jump out of a helicopter again, or oh, I wish that I could go to the BRM range and show up these kids, and oh, I wish I could do this or that other thing. And a lot of people cope with that by finding community in different ways uh, throughout their lives. Um, but what makes you want to return to something like this that, by all accounts, from an objective view, has abused you, uh, is this feeling of tribe, this feeling of community, camaraderie, where people actually care about you and what happens to you. Um, and sometimes we don't even see the extent to which that is the truth when we are in it, um, but we know it when we leave it. So knowing that, it it really creates a sense of loss or a sense of hybridity, um, that, oh, it's painful. It's painful to have lost that part of yourself. Now, for LGBTQIA plus veterans, I wanted to give you a timeline of their rights, because this is a really important population of veterans. Um, who have experienced a lot of being jerked around, right? Uh, Even more so, if you can believe it, than um, racial minorities often. So I wanted to give you this timeline so that you can sort of understand what we're working with here. So as of 1920, we felt the need to codify what we believed about um, gay people in the military. So in 1920, the Articles of War explicitly criminalized sodomy, um, which they later defined as unnatural carnal copulation. Um, Now, the sodomy part is actually non-consensual, um, but the unnatural carnal copulation, that's how they made it to where even if you were consensually engaging in these unnatural acts, then you were still falling foul of the rules. And this is UCMJ, so or Articles of War for World War One. And so it actually makes it a criminal offense to engage in sodomy, right? Now, 1951, we have an update to the UCMJ, replaces the older military codes maintaining strict bans against sodomy and homosexual acts. So it replaces them, but it maintains those bans, and defines this as homosexual acts as opposed to unnatural carnal copulation, which is um, at least a more correct labeling of it, right? In 1982, we get the Department of Defense directive formally declaring homosexuality incompatible with military service, leading to mandatory discharges. So this is the first time actually that these people are not arrested as criminals and instead are just mandatorily discharged from military service because their behavior is considered not not uh, compatible with military service. Um, and we go until then 1993 when President Bill Clinton initiates the "Don't Ask, Don't Tell" policy, which is basically um, you can be gay, you don't have to be gay, whatever it is, just don't tell anybody about it, right? So he's essentially giving um, carte blanche or a free check to anybody to be closeted, but you're not allowed to be out, right? So that took effect in 1994, allowing closeted gay, lesbian, and bisexual individuals to serve, provided they did not disclose their sexual orientation. And believe me, they were asked. Thousands of service members were still discharged under this policy over the next 17 years. Um, if you want a somewhat humorous example of this, there's a movie called In the Army Now with Pauly Shore, and that is they do a send up of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Um, so there's that. In 2010, so we're dealing with sometime later, President Barack Obama signed the Don't Ask, Don't Tell Repeal Act, with it, which in 2011 certified that the repeal was there and permitted LGBTQIA individuals to serve openly. Um, the Pentagon in 2015 added sexual orientation to the military's equal opportunity non-discrimination policy, and same-sex spouses began receiving full military benefits. So if we cut there, we've got everything we've ever wanted, right? We're good. We've got full equity. However, in 2016, the Obama administration lifts the ban on transgender service, allowing trans personnel to serve openly. Great, we're doing even better. But in 2019, the first Trump administration instituted restrictions that effectively barred most transgender individuals from enlisting or serving. So we had a spate of discharges on that 2019 ban from the Trump administration. In 2021, President Joe Biden signed an executive order reversing those restrictions and restoring open transgender enlistment and authorizing gender affirming medical care for soldiers who were transgender and had gender dysphoria. But as you all know, elections have consequences, and in 2025, Donald Trump rescinded the 2021 Biden executive order upon taking office and signed Executive Order 14183, directing the DoD to prohibit transgender, non-binary, and gender non-conforming individuals from military service. Again, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth issued a memo freezing all gender-affirming medical procedures. These are people who are already approved by their doctors for gender-affirming care, and in some cases were already on medication to ease that or aid that. In March of 2025, the U.S. District Court Judge Anna Reyes issued a preliminary injunction to temporarily block the administration from enforcing the military ban. In May, the Supreme Court voted 6-3 to lift the lower court injunctions, allowing the Pentagon's transgender service restrictions to go into effect while lawsuits continued. And then recently in June, a panel from the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit ruled that 2-1 that policies targeting current transgender troops were discriminatory, as we see back in this part, right? Ensuring that ongoing litigation continues over the policy. So we are not by any means in a settled place on transgender rights in the military. Certainly, And if those rights are in question, then all other LGBTQ folks are in question um, for the military service. So adding that as an intersectional identity, um, and I certainly served with people who were LGBTQIA plus in various forms, and have met veterans since then who served as one gender and are now expressing another gender. So um, this further complicates what is already a complicated intersectional identity for veterans because they are getting jerked around, like I said at the beginning here, right? This population specifically is being jerked around about um, whether or not their identity is compatible with military service, and all the while they're serving, right? And serving honorably for the most part. And it's just wild to me that we can uh, be so whiplashy back and forth with these people's livelihoods. And again, we are not paying them the kind of money that they should be enduring this abuse. But part of the military is instilling this feeling of tribalism, right? That we are a tribe, that we are on the same team, that we are all serving our nation for different reasons, but for um, and that that is an honorable thing, right? You'll hear this repeated a lot among officers. Uh, I don't care where the veteran served, what branch, what their job was. What I care about is the fact that at one point in their lives, they signed a blank check to the US government payable up to their lives, right? And that one act, regardless of whatever else they did in their lives, uh, redeems them and makes them part of this tribe. So I want to leave it there. I don't want to steal the thunder of the sources for you this week, but do take a look at everything and continue to update your writing assignments. Um, I want to see everybody pass. I want to see everybody do well. Please reach out if you have questions. Thank you.